Okay, what's up guys? I know it's been a long time since I've been on here, but I wanted to come back and do a wrap up of all the reading I've done since my last video to the end of 2021. The last video I did my September wrap up. And so I'm really going to be talking about the books I read in October, November, and December. And these are books that I was pretty excited about, really anticipated for me, so I'm glad that I finished them. And some were hits, some were, not misses, but just not as good as I had expected them to be. But going in order, starting with the first book that I finished after my last video, I read Intimacies, a novel by Katie Kitamura. To be honest, it was a good book, well written. Not my favorite read though, and it's kind of hard to explain why, but basically the main character is a narrator for The Hague, and The Hague is an international criminal court, and they try people who do crimes such as mass human-wide crimes like genocide. And the main character really talks about the intimacy of language, and those parts were really good. I mean, I liked when the narrator would talk about how when you translate words, for instance, from French to English, you're not just translating the word, you're translating the irony that the speaker is communicating, the humor that the speaker is communicating. You're getting down the intonation, the cadence, even the register. So, it's really, really just interesting to hear the narrator in this book talk about how intimate language is and how much is said even when it's not there, So I thought that was interesting. I think what I really didn't understand was the main character's relationship with a married man named Adrian. That part of the book, to me, I really don't understand. Adrian was never really there, so it was kind of hard to buy into the main character's kind of longing for this character that you don't really know, you don't really see, and who isn't that reliable in the book. But otherwise, I thought it was well written, so if you want to read it, please do. It's a really contemplative, contemporary fiction novel, and those are usually my bread and butter, so I'm a little disappointed that this didn't hit as well as I thought it would, and I might reread it because maybe I would get a better sense of what this book is trying to communicate. Okay, after that I read another contemplative novel, Beautiful World by Sally Rooney, and everyone was telling me to read Sally Rooney, and this ended up being my first Sally Rooney novel. I would say this book really centers around two people, Alice and Eileen, who are best friends, and in the novel they exchange long-form emails where they talk about romance, but also the ills of capitalism and the loss of kindness and beauty in the world. So Alice and Eileen are the main characters, best friends. They live apart because they're just in different spaces in their life. Alice is a really famous author, and Eileen works at a magazine. It's not really clear what she does, but she doesn't make a lot of money, and she kind of feels pretty apathetic about her work. The guys that they're interested in, one of them is Simon. Simon has been childhood friends with Alice and Eileen, and him and Eileen have this thing, but they've not really been single at the same time until now, and they really have a hard time communicating to each other that they like each other, so that's that. Then Alice has a thing with this trash man. I don't even know how else to describe him. He's not giving at all, but his name is Felix, and Felix is I guess the most working class of them. I think he works at a factory or something. I can't really remember. But he's just a hater. He just brings Alice down, will say negative things to her. And I guess Alice is attracted to this because Alice is used to getting what she wants, being very successful, being fawned over. So maybe she wants a guy who will mistreat her. I really don't understand that relationship. The reason why this book didn't really bring me into the Sally Rooney hive is not because I didn't like it, because I did like aspects of it. I liked the discussions in the emails. A lot of people who reviewed this book said the emails were boring and fake and not realistic, and I was actually, I think the emails were probably the best part of this book. I loved how they discussed philosophical ideas with each other through email, and email's not outdated, guys. I don't know what you guys are talking about. People send emails still. And it's not like Sally Rooney was doing it to avoid technology, because you still see the characters use their phone a lot, text each other, use dating apps. So it wasn't meant to be quaint for no reason. I just thought it was a really nice touch. And it's more modern than if she had had them sending letters to each other, which I see other books do. Nobody sends letters to each other. So I don't know why people were hating on the email part. I really like the emails. People were saying that they thought the sex was boring. That's a pretty sex negative thing to say. One, I don't think people realize, like, people are allowed to go about that however they want to, whether it's super vanilla or super kinky. So I don't really know why people are saying that as like a bad thing. Separating the sex though, the romance was a cool storyline when it came to Eileen and Simon. I felt like we were supposed to buy into Alice and Felix, and I really did not. I really feel like Felix is trash. In terms of the characters, even though I liked the conversations they were having with each other, I didn't like any of them. They were pretty bland. They're just pretty bland people. So did this bring me into Sally Rooney Hive? No, but I also don't like when people hate on books because they see it's getting popular, and that's what I won't do to this book. Like, people, it really irks me when people see that people like things and are like, let me be the contrarian voice and say this book sucks. Like, I'm not gonna do that. This book doesn't suck. It is good, or it has good parts. The next book I'm gonna talk about is actually nonfiction, and I'm really proud of myself because I don't read that much nonfiction as much as I would like, because, you know, law school kind of ruined the fun of nonfiction for me. But the book is Somebody's Daughter, a memoir by Ashley C. Ford, and this ended up being one of my top reads of 2021. And this book follows Ashley from childhood to adulthood and talks about how the absence of her father due to her father's incarceration has impacted her life. And her father, I'm not really going to spoil it and tell you why he's incarcerated, but just know it has to do something with violence against women. And so this is very personal to Ashley, who's also experienced a similar sort of violence. So she's kind of reckoning with, okay, my father loves me. I know that he loves me, but he's done this pretty bad thing to other women. So how do I reckon with that? So that's why I feel like this book is getting billed as being about abolition, because it is about forgiveness in the toughest of times. And also there's a lot of interesting discussion about how children kind of contort themselves and perform silence and aren't allowed to be their full selves around adults. And I really appreciated this book for that discussion, because I think that's so true. I really feel like children are undervalued in this society. I did feel like the childhood part and the teenage part were really developed, and then the adulthood part was not as developed. And I almost feel like the author could have waited maybe 5 or 10 more years to write this memoir, because you really don't get enough commentary on how her relationship with her mom and dad is right now. And granted, it's a memoir. The author has, you know, it's the author's prerogative to put in the memoir what she wants to, but I would have liked to seen a little bit more discussion about when her father gets out of prison, what does building that relationship look like? Okay, the next one is actually not a book, it's a play, but it is Slave Play by Jeremy O. Harris. This was a play that, when it came out, was really controversial because it basically centers around race play. And in this play, three interracial couples are reenacting scenes from slavery to get the black couples to connect sexually with their white partners. So I believe Kanisha is a black woman. She's with Jim, a white man. Gary's a black man. He's with Dustin, a white man. And then I want to say Alana is with Philip. Alana is a white woman. Philip is biracial. So in this play, Act 1, the couples are reenacting scenes, and the white characters all play like overseers or mistresses, people with power, and the black characters all play enslaved folks. And there's a sexual undertone to all of these scenes. So I don't want to spoil who, but one of the white characters basically has a freak out and is like, I can't do this anymore. And when one person calls it quits, all three couples have to stop. And then in Act 2, they go into a therapy room, they talk about how they felt, and this discussion is a very interesting unpacking of race, I think. I was really surprised because I thought that this play would be just using slavery as shock value, and maybe to an extent it is, but I think there's a really interesting discussion. And yeah, I don't think shock value is the goal. I think the play is supposed to really unpack the relationships that black people and white people have in this country, when this country has such a long history of racism and slavery. That's the best way I can put it, and be neutral about it. So yeah, I thought this play was actually better than I thought. I was afraid to read this because I was like, oh, all the reviews, people are saying this is disrespectful, but you know, I really feel like it was actually well done. So let me know what you guys think if you ever read this play. The last book I read of 2021, My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. If you know Emily, you know her as a very beautiful model. She's just known for being a very beautiful model with a very, I guess, nice figure. But if you don't know her, maybe you've seen the music video for Blurred Lines with Robin Thicke, Pharrell, and T.I., and she's in it. And that's kind of how her face got really big. She also wrote an article for The Cut called Buying Myself Back. And I will say this book is very well written. And it really talks about, as a woman who's deemed beautiful by society, which I'm not gonna shade Emily, I think she is beautiful, but as a woman that's deemed beautiful by society, is this a place of power or empowerment, or is this a place of performing for the male gaze and not really having any power, disempowerment, you know? And I do think this is a necessary piece of the beauty privilege conversation, the pretty privilege conversation. But, you know, in this book, I do kind of feel like Emily is positioning herself as a victim, which in a lot of ways she is. Like, she experiences sexual assault, like, you know, compared to powerful men in Hollywood, you know, she still is kind of a pawn for these people to, you know, use. At the same time, you know, I do feel like she doesn't acknowledge her own power in creating this beauty standard that has been pretty harmful for a lot of women of color, fat women, and there's no really discussion about her own role in the whole apparatus. She kind of positions herself as someone who's just doing stuff because she has to and has like no power to say no to jobs. And like, I wrote a longer review on this on my bookstagram and it actually went viral, so I have to thank you, Emily, because reading your book brought me to 10K on Instagram. But yeah, read my review because I think it explains more what I'm trying to say. But it's like, yeah, I just feel like could have been more discussion around colorism, racism, fat phobia in the industry, even though she's not required to speak for other women, but just like acknowledge that. I don't even think she mentions those words, like, but she mentions patriarchy. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a white feminist thing. Like, you're only mentioning patriarchy, but you're not mentioning all the other isms that has resulted in you gaining so much power in this beauty industry. So anyway, those are the 5 books I read in between the end of September and the end of 2021. Next video I'm going to film right now is a Barnes & Noble haul because I went to the 50% off hardcover sale and I got a lot of books, so I will be filming that. But thank you so much for watching and I will catch you guys later. Bye.